we just go through it, you get a sense, now he's still waving back and forth, but the shoulders are counter-animating the hips. You know, as the right hip goes forward, the right shoulder goes back. All right? And that just makes it simple for you to figure out what to do with the arms. Okay? The arms are the last thing to do because they're just like kind of floppy little things, and you can animate them gesturing or just swinging or whatever. But I don't worry about the arms until last, because everything that the arms do is based off of what happens to the hips and then happens up through the spine and into the shoulders. So we've got the y-axis figured out. Now let's take a look at the z-axis. The z-axis being this one right here. Okay. What we have here is on these passing frames, in the passing position, the body tilt's really kind of off balance. So again, the hips kind of tilt clockwise, so the spine / shoulders will tip counterclockwise. So let's go ahead and give that a 10-degree rock there. I mean, this is tipped over minus 8.5. I'm kind of overdoing it here, just as, again, to kind of show you what's going on. Well, let's go ahead and do it 8.5, just to kind of even it out. But you know what? Sometimes the numbers don't work right. I don't like it. You know, I'd rather do 9.5 or 10 or something, but well, let's call it 10 for giggles, all right? So we've got that spread out. So now what we have is that. Now, again, look at your other passing pose. We're doing different. I'm getting away from what I normally do. I build walks very differently than I animate my acting scenes in a lot of ways. This is where I am more of your classically minded CG animator, where I don't mind doing things in pieces because I understand the rules inside and out, so I'm able to just kind of go ahead and say, all right, well, this is what I need to do. So we go to our other passing position, which is 18. All right, that's where this foot is up in the air and the hip is rotated this way, so we want to counter the top of the body the other way. So we take this and we go ahead and we'll rotate it 10 the other way. Well, that would be 10 the other way. Okay? And it's at 0 there, and it's at 0 there. And here it's at 0. Okay, do we want it at 0? I don't know. Take a look at what it looks like in our graph editor. And the rotate Z at 0 there, that's fine. Yeah, there's not even a key there. It's just happening naturally on its own. Again, you can take the high points and the low points, give them a little bit of an ease. Maybe clean up these things a little bit. Yeah. Take those, make them no, something like that. Just to, you know, make the math pass through that cycle so you get a nice wave without any bumps. Okay? All right, so there you go. And that's that. All right, so we figured out the shoulder counter-rotating on the Y and on the Z, okay? What about the X? Well, again, we don't really have a lot of X rotate on the hips, but we do have some. Remember, we did put in some X rotate. See, it's right there. So what we want to try and do is just, again, counter that a little bit. But, you know, not to get too crazy about it. We don't want to be too nutty. We made it so that on the weight up, the hip is rotated on the X as back as far as it'll go. So we'll just rotate the chest forward a little bit, just again to keep the weight a little bit over on top of himself. Okay. So on the weight up, full weight up, which is 2 frames usually after the passing position, we rotate him forward because the hips are rotated back, and then on the weight down, which is 2 frames after the heel contact. On the weight down, we'll go ahead and we'll rotate that back again to try and give us a little bit more balance there. You may say, well, what about overlap of the chest? You can build that, but you're usually going to go ahead, and this I'm just giving you basics of a kind of a defaultish walk. That's why I'm not going to be dogmatic about the rotate X on any of this stuff, because I'm not sure that you absolutely really need it in the hips. And you can use a lot of different things. You know, I got you could really rotate that forward on the passing positions if you wanted to really kind of create a sense of this guy, you know, you know, with a heavy kind of head forward bob walk, you know. I mean, you could do that too if you want. So rotate X is kind of where you get that overlapping flavor. But again, the general idea is that you're going to go opposite. So if you want to know, well, what if I want the character's body to kind of flop forward, do I do it on the weight down? No, you do it on the passing, because that's where you get the overlap, because the body's coming up, hips are rotating back, then the chest comes forward, and the body goes down. That's where you get that overlapping. Okay? So, nothing there. Full weight up. We rotated the chest forward a little bit to kind of give a little bit of a bob. Let's go ahead and build a little bit more in there just to kind of really accentuate it. And then the weight down. Throw it back a little bit. And then again on the weight up. Throw it forward a little bit. And then back out to 0 again to finish our happy little happy clouds. Alright. Again, take and handle those. I haven't cycled that very well. Let's go ahead and investigate that. Rather than stop recording, let's figure out what I did wrong. Okay. So at 1 and at 24, it's at 0. As well it ought to be. Okay. And then what I did is at the weight down, I rotated it back. And so what I needed to do is at this weight down, rotate it back. Okay, I forgot to do that. So this one is weight down, so that is minus 3.602. Come here, just type in minus 3.602. You get that back. You flop that, now it cycles. See? And now that's kind of goofy looking. I mean, if we go through it, he really flops forward, but you get the idea. I wouldn't do it that extreme, to be honest with you. Most of the time, I really wouldn't bother with making anything anywhere near that accentuated for, well, I'll just have to take the whole thing and scale it down, won't I? Again, rotate X is where you can get some personality, but I don't get too dogmatic about it. Again, for a default walk. Okay, so there we've taken our spine and we've counter rotated to the hips on all axes one at a time, and that doesn't look too shabby. I mean, if we just watch it, it's kind of a fun little walk. Not too bad, right? So we're doing pretty good there. All right. So what about the head? Same thing with the head. The head tends to shadow the hips. Okay. If the shoulders counter the hips, the head tends to shadow the hips. In fact, you almost could get away with copying and pasting the values from one to the other. So, let's take a look at our happy little head one here. Let's get rid of these little keys. And set a new one there. What happens if we go ahead and take, well, let's say the rotate X or rotate Z of our head, edit, and copy it. And then go ahead and put it on our head. Edit, paste. What do we get? Not shabby. It's just kind of to illustrate the point. I mean, would you do it? You could. Could you do it by hand? Sure you could. But the idea here is that you want it, you know, if the head isn't independent, I could also make, right now you see the head is apparent to the chest. I could also make the head independent, and you kind of get a lot of that for free. But I'm trying to show you, in case your rig doesn't have independent heads, the concept behind it. So all I did is I just took the hip Z rotate and I just applied it to the head. And now the head's doing a pretty decent job of, well, up until the point where it cycles back out again. So what I need to do is select that, set view to turn on infinity, post infinity, cycle. So now it's going to cycle. And the head does a pretty decent job. But he is kind of doing this left and right look because I only copied the Z rotate this one. Well, let's go ahead and see what happens if we copy the Y rotate. Edit, copy, put it to the head, edit, paste, set the thing to cycle, and what do we get? He's looking straight forward. and it looks like he's keeping his head balanced. Again, do you have to copy and paste these things? No, you don't have to. Could you use it as a starting point? Sure, why not? You know, it's a computer. Use it where it's good, and this is where the computer's really, really good. Copying and pasting values from one object and putting it on the other. You have to know what you're doing, though. And I knew that in a principle for a walk, the shoulders counter the hips, but the head, in order to maintain balance, shadows the hips. So, what the hips do, the head does. Okay? But the only way that works is if the shoulders are running counter to the hips. Okay, so we've got our head worked out pretty well here. Could we do the same thing with the X? Well, this is where you might want to get a little more imaginative and just kind of, you know, do a little head bob thing on your own. But sure, let's go ahead and this is I wouldn't copy and paste stuff off of the hips here, to be honest with you. I'd probably just, when he steps down, I'd find some place like the passing position, and I'd just rotate the head forward a little bit. And I'd probably rotate it back a bit on the heel plant just to get a missile. On the way down, oops, sorry. On the passing position, it would go forward a bit. And in this way, you get that kind of goofy flop thing going on. It's a bit much, to be honest with you, but again, we're just kind of showing you kind of how things could work. Curves, post-infinity cycle. That's because I forgot to take that and do that and do that and do that. No. There. Actually make a real cycle, why don't we? Right? Flatten it out. Yeah, I don't really like it a whole lot, but oops. Let's scale it down and make it something a little bit different. But you kind of get the idea. And maybe take the head back a little bit. And this is where I don't mind playing around in the graph editor. Like the head back a little bit. And really, the difference between one walk and another walk, I mean, really, it's just playing around with stuff like this. Let's say I want him to be kind of more tired and I want his head to be down. And I really want it to feel like when he walks, his head really flops. You want it to feel like his head really flops. Well, then you just go ahead and make his head really flop. See? And it's really just, this is how you come up with different examples. Alright. But I'm not really into that too much. We just want a kind of a simple little bit of gravity going on there, okay? So you get a lot of your personality for a walk on the rotate X's of the head and of the neck and of the spines and stuff. And a person may ask, well, what are you going to do with the neck? Depends. I mean, if I have a character with a really long neck, I might feel compelled to do something. But with this guy, I don't know, it looks good, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay. The head feels a little on the late side, which is the great thing about doing a walk with a cycle like this anyways. Now I'm in the position where I can start kind of goofing around and sliding things around to get a different look. It's all based off of a solid construction, so I'm not worried about it. And it really does feel like the head coming down is a bit late. So, okay, we'll just take the whole thing and we'll just move it back 2 frames. Why not? It's cycled, right? Man, maybe I don't like that. Maybe I want to go ahead and move it back 1 frame. This is kind of where you get to play around a bit. Okay, it's alright. Not fantastic. Let's say I want to really get radical with this thing, and I want to go ahead and I want to have the head come forward not on the weight up, or on the passing position, but instead on the weight down. Could I do that? Sure, why not? So take the whole thing and move it back so that this key is back here on the weight down. So what used to be at 5 is now at 3 on the weight down. What does that look like? A little better. Is it more right? Not necessarily more right or more wrong, because there is no such thing as a right or a wrong walk. There's just different personalities, different kinds of walks, and different people. So I like, for this guy, I just kind of like him with his head hitting on, you know, a frame or two after the weight down. Not too heavy, not too soft. Looks pretty good. Okay? So that's how we handle the head and the spine and then everything else like that. So what's next? Well, there's a couple of things. Before I get to the arms, I want to clean up one thing about the feet. There's a certain aspect of what happens with the feet, and that happens mainly in the passing position. They don't generally travel straight forward. Okay, my keys for this are back here, so let me move to that position. When we get up to the passing and the weight up position, what I like to do is I actually like to nudge the feet in. Not so much like that. You can, if you want, you can do the knees. I'm not liking what's happening there with the knee, just the way this is built. Something funky with the rig that I didn't check out before. I really don't want to have to counter animate this stuff. But a lot of times what I like to do is I like to kind of give a little bit of a look right there. All right, I'm not going to bother animating that in, but what that gives you is it just feels a little more natural. It's a little more overlappy. That's kind of already animated in and stuff, so kind of do that. Now his knee's too far out, which I don't like, but that's just the pull vector problem right there. So we take that and let's go ahead and set this pull vector, set a key there, and find one, set it there to kind of remember that spot, and then go back to where the foot is where it is, and then send this thing back to there, and set a key there. Just to kind of show you what's going on there. Just to give the foot a little bit more of an in and out sort of thing, okay? You can add that to your walks. I won't video me building it in here, but I'll have it on the final walk that I post on the video here in a few minutes. But that's just, again, something that I want to do to try and give it a bit more weight. And one last thing in this section before I do the arms is now I want to take a look at the side-to-side motion of the hips. Okay, the basic rule here, or principle, is that when it comes to, well, nah, over there anyways. How annoying is that, right? And then when he gets down here to that, I'm going to put that back there. I guess I am going to go ahead and video me putting this in here. Just because the cycle is already on this thing, so I gotta fix it in there. Okay. So, again, on the passing and the weight up, right now he's kind of off balance, like he's going to fall over this way. So what you have to try and look at doing is take a look at the translate X of his hips here, so that you get a better sense of his balance. Okay. So let me make screen space a little bit more usable for us, and take the translate X. Now there's some extra keys in here. Again, you really only have to worry about the passing or the weight up position. You can choose one or the other. I usually choose weight up for a lot of this stuff because it gives a little more snap. If things are, you know, hitting their apex at the weight up, then that gives them 4 frames to come back down the other way, and I think it's just a little more fun. So again, you can kind of take these things and kind of play with them a little bit. You can do it right in the graph editor. You can do it, you know, in the world view if you want. I'm just doing it in the graph editor to kind of explain to you the you know the principle behind it and how you can do that for you graph editor freaks, just to show you guys that I actually do know how to use a graph editor, right? All right, so there's one passing position, or I'm sorry, one weight up position, and then we just figure out what that is. That's minus, well, let's just go ahead and give it a -8, nice round number. And then the other weight position, let's go ahead and make that an 8. Okay, so that the weight's distributed that way. Now I've got these extra keys in here, but we don't need them. Don't need them at all. So I just go ahead and get rid of them. Okay, and this guy and this guy, we can go ahead and take them up, so we have a nice cycle. One reason to do this stuff in the graph editor is you can kind of see your cycles being built. Well, I don't want you to be flat, so let me go ahead and auto tangent that, and then just do a little tweak. Okay. It's really exaggerated, but it's to kind of illustrate the point of the weight shifting side to side. Okay? Does he have to be that far? It really feels odd because I didn't animate in the foot swinging in on this one right here, so it feels kind of weird that his foot's out like that. But again, you can animate a really funny looking walk where a guy swings his feet way the heck out there. You can even animate a walk where his knees are in, and you can do all kinds of things with walks. You don't have to, there's no rule that says you have to do it this way. That's why I said there's no such thing as the perfect walk. But it looks pretty good on the passing position / weight up combo right here, where it kind of goes to that side a bit, and it goes to that side a bit. I could build in this right there, but for the sake of brevity, I won't. Okay? So again, just understanding the principles of the mechanics of what's going on here, not in an attempt to try and find the perfect walk, but to try and build in all the mechanics so that then I can start experimenting and or editing the various pieces, editing the mechanics to come up with a different look. Okay? So that's how we're looking at this section right here, working out the upper body and then also the left and right and some other fun little things. And so I want to just wrap it up with the arms here and see how that looks. Alright, to wrap this up, let's take a look at how we can just now, on top of all the stuff we've done with the hips and the shoulders and the spines and all that other stuff, let's just go ahead and put the icing on this cake, which is the arms. Basic rule of the arm is that it swings in opposition to the leg on the same side. Another couple basic rules is that the forward arc of the swing for an arm is generally going to fall on the weight down, full weight down pose. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start building this in here so you can kind of get a sense of what I'm doing. I'm going to go ahead and hide this other thing because I really don't need it. Okay. What you'll get, and one of the reasons why I do this after I do the shoulders is because if you're working in FK, you'll end up doing the arms, and then when you change the shoulders, you have to go back and change the arms. So why not just do it all right one time at the end? So got this sort of working. The arm full forward, you're going to notice that it doesn't just come straight forward, it comes forward and across. Okay, I'm not really doing anything with the fingers. I suppose I could do the fingers if I wanted to. There's too many finger controls. I don't have time for it. So looking at that, that's keyed, looking at that, that's keyed. All right. And let's take the backswing of the arm, and it will generally occur on the same frame as well. That being the, you can break it a little bit if you want. That being the frame, the full weight down. And the arm will swing back behind the body a little bit, but it's more of a hand thing than anything else. You get too crazy with it and it starts feeling a little too sassy. Again, the old saw that there is no such thing as a single perfect walk. I'm going to hide these. It just doesn't, I don't think it exists because there's no single perfect person. So Everybody does things a little bit differently. What's right for one character would look completely wrong on another one. So you kind of have to just go by what feels right for your character. Again, just understanding the basic principles of the thing. Alright, and so on the next full weight down, which is there, we just go ahead and reverse it. Now what we could do if we wanted to is we can just take key, copy it, go there, and paste it. But you see, it doesn't really quite work with. Sometimes that works in a rig, sometimes it doesn't. Here, it didn't work at all. So what I like to do is just go ahead and one at a time, just kind of mirror it. You know, just kind of eyeball a little bit. The nice thing about not copying and pasting is it does give you some opportunity to just build some stuff. One of the big complaints I have with cycles is that they cycle. I like building my walks generally in space if I can help it, because most of the time you're not using a straight walk from point A to point B with no turns in it most of the time. But the nice thing about it, building in some of these little inaccuracies, if you want to call it that, is that you get some stuff for free. You mix things up a little bit of the artist's hand in there. Okay. All right, so we got that working, and we'll get this working, and just kind of get a sense of how this stuff looks. Very basic, nothing too crazy. All right, and then let's go ahead and take all of these. Since we're building a cycle, we'll just take this out to the next weight down. Now there's the toe plant, so the next weight down would be 2 after that, right? But our cycle is passing into that. Well, here's a neat little trick. Take the one you have and copy it out. Okay, even though that's past the end of your cycle, if you wanted to, you can just take the cycle front and back on this and just let it be on time. Or if you absolutely must have a cycle that is 1 to 24, then you just go back here to 24, which is somewhere along the way, and you can set a key there and then copy it back to there. Of course, it's a little premature to do some of that because we got some other things to figure out. What do we need to figure out? Well, the first thing we have to figure out is that passing position / full weight up thing. What general rule of thumb is that the favoring of the arm swing at its primary breakdown, which is usually going to be pretty much around this full weight up, is going to be coming from the back forward to the front, or from the front forward backward to the back. Yeah, I know what I'm talking about. It's going to favor where it came from. Okay, and you want to know what I'm talking about with favoring? You can go back and get VTS20. Talked a lot about favoring there. And so what I'm going to do is kind of just favor it back a little bit. And the arm tends to swing a little bit. Another thing you'll notice is that I tend to rotate the hand so that the knuckle kind of is leading the forward. It's not just a straight pan. It's not this, but it's just got a little bit of a turn to it, so it's got a little more life. And this guy, since he's coming from forward to back, you can go ahead and maybe overlap him and drag him a little bit this way. Okay. And again, kind of swing it in a little bit. Does it have to be this way all the time? Nah, it doesn't have to be this way. It's just, it's a good general principle that it will usually favor the previous pose. That gives it a little bit more snap, because when it does finally get back here, it goes a little bit better. And you can build the overlap into this stuff later on. I'm just giving you the basics for blocking this stuff out. And we get here, you get like so. There we go. And so when he comes forward again, we'll go ahead and favor it a little bit, even by breaking the elbow if we want, right? Why not? It's our character. There's no rule that says we can't do that. Do this, do this, do this. Take this, bring it in. It's going to favor the front a bit. I'm just kind of eyeballing it really quick. By getting this stuff in there, and by eyeballing it, you can start giving yourself some room to kind of tweak it later on. Because remember, the basic concept is that for the most part, every walk is just a variation of the same walk. You know, so just get it in there. Get the concepts in there. What you want is you want the full forward, full back. You want a passing position with some sense of favoring, and then the opposite, full forward, forward back, and another favor, and another full forward, forward back. All right, you can do that stuff if you want. Go ahead, take them all, put up the graph editor, select them all, curves, post-infinity, cycle, curves, pre-infinity, cycle. So now it's cycling. Okay, there's a little bit of a hop right there and some rotate Y. And so we'll just go ahead and make these things the same. Okay. Now I built these by hand, and for this last pose what I really should have done is just copied and pasted them like a dummy. I didn't do that. Take that, middle mouse over there, key that. It should, if I did it right. There's a bit of a jibber jabber right there. Wonder what I did wrong. Key that, and then come here and key that. But I have, oh, there's these frames back at -1. That's the problem. Seems the rig comes pre-keyed for a reset pose, which I forgot to get rid of, which is right there. My bad. Okay, now it should be a little bit better, right? Okay, not great, but the basics are there. And move it out. Now there's not much overlap going on there, but that's just the basic construction. Now you can start having fun with it. Oh, you want to go ahead and spline it? Let's go ahead and spline it. Why not, you know? A little bit better, splining it out. And now you can start dragging stuff off if you want. Or if you want the hand to kind of have an overlap to it, drag it out a couple of frames. Take this, drag that out a frame or two. Now I know I wrote a big tutorial about not doing this, but sometimes it's just the easiest way to do it. Not many rules in this business. There's a few, but everything else is mostly just guidelines. Sometimes a thing works, sometimes a technique works, sometimes it's just total butt. In here, the technique works pretty decent. You know, a big gang guy if I turn off the curves. Not shabby. A big dopey gangly guy. Kind of fun. And that works for his personality. Would that work for an uptight guy? Not at all. But to get an uptight walk, all the basics are here. All the construction is here. Now, it's just a matter of changing values. Okay, if you want uptight, you don't make the arms swing as loose. Okay, they don't overlap as much. They don't have quite as much range to them. You know, they don't swing back quite as far. They don't ever extend as far. Maybe he's not that leaning back. Maybe he's hunched forward. His steps would be shorter. He wouldn't sway side to side quite as much. All you have to do is start examining what the person acts or feels like, start expressing that in their body, and that's where you get all these different personalities. What I'm trying to do is just give you the basics of getting the core walk down so that you can look at every walk the same way. It's not a mystery. It's just simple observation and then getting down to the core of it. Okay? And so I'm going to go ahead and get you guys to look at the play blast of this after it's all cleaned up and everything, because there's a few little things here and there. Nothing major. But I'm going to go ahead and clean it up off camera, and then I'll wrap up while we watch that. Okay? All right, as always, I hope that was useful to you. Um, the I apologize about the loudness of the clicking throughout the video. The settings were fine last month, and usual audio goblins showed up and ruined it for me this month, but we're on top of it. We'll fix it. Um, but you kind of get the point there. Just to rehash over some things, you can quickly figure out how to move a character through space using the three drawing blocking: the heel plant, the passing, the heel plant, working on stride length and stride speed. You get those things worked out, you can figure out how any walk will work in any space. So to me, once I figured that out, that opened up a lot of doors for me. Gave me a lot of freedom to find how I was going to go about handling these tricky walks through space. You can literally do those three drawings, and you can have them walk through an obstacle course. All you have to do is just turn and do the turns pretty much on the as they lift off the ground, and do the turn by dragging the knee across the front of them. And then once you have those three drawing blocks figured out, then you can go ahead and add the other two drawings, the full weight down and the tipping point, or the full weight up pose. And once you have those five, that's it. Everything else goes from there. That's when I layer in the hip rotation, then the chest rotation, then make sure the head works okay, then maybe some hip translation. Put in the arms. Since everything's being fed through the core of the body now, the arms, it all makes sense. You don't have to counter animate the arms later. This is the only way. This is pretty much the only thing I animate this way. It's a kind of an old leftover way of thinking about things, but it's really helpful for me because a walk is just every walk is a construction of these various elements, and that seems to be the thing that helps the most. So anyways, that's it for walks this time around. I may come back and do an advanced walk one later on, and may offer that as a special buy it extra. I don't think I'm going to put it in the VTS for the general subscribership. I might make it something that if people want it, they could buy it as an extra. But next month we're getting back into animating Murray. For those of you who stuck through this and who were bored by it all, I apologize. For those of you for whom this was very, very useful, I'm glad it was useful. For those of you who thought I was drunk on spiked eggnog because of the Christmas season, you're almost right. Anyhow, I hope everybody has a great holiday season, a great new year. I'm looking forward to doing some more VTS here in 2007, getting into some really, really fun concepts. I want to start getting into some more advanced things like choreography between characters, managing screen space between characters, who owns a shot, who gives up the shot. Lots of really, really neat stuff. I'm excited. I'm glad you guys are still involved. And for 2007, may everybody be blessed, safe, prosperous, and happy. God bless and be good.